Hello out there to a world of people connecting into insights. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and perhaps even nearly good night to some of you, whatever time of day it is for you. I hope that you're keeping safe, and I do hope that you are keeping well. My name is Marcus Wylie, and I'm here to host a webinar today where we will be talking with the wonderful Lara Hug, who is the Skills and Capability Lead at Roche. Lara is here to talk about training teams through lockdown and how to enable strategic and cultural aims through these times. Such a hot topic for many of us on these webinars over the past few months. We have been talking about all of these things. Lara will probably be saying hello in the chat. In fact, I invite Lara to say hi to everybody in the chat. And as Lara says hi, please do feel encouraged to say hello back and welcome her to the call. For those of you who are regular attenders on this series of webinars, it's great to have you back with us. Thank you for coming along. And please do get involved in the chat box. As ever, there will be opportunities throughout for you to comment, as well as pose any questions that you would like me to ask to Lara yourself. I will endeavour to get all of those to Lara, and we will do whatever we can during the session today to answer as many questions as we can. So please also use the chat box to share your reflections and your thoughts along the way. This is very much a community that encourages participation, and we really want all the participants to share your view, share your knowledge, share your wisdom, and share your experience. Look on today as that opportunity to learn and share with each other. You know what? You may have something important that you have to say. I'm sure Lara will too. If you're listening to our recording today, please do enjoy our session. And for those of you who are new to this webinar series, a very little bit about who I am. I describe myself as a liberator, an entertainer, and an initiator. And the role I hold at Insights is Head of Learning and Experience. So today's a little bit about learning and a little bit about experience. So Lara will share her story and her thoughts to help us learn, but also to help us experience the journey of an Insights practitioner. But that's enough time in warm-up. It's time to get this party started. So first up, Lara and I would like to ask you a few questions, if that's okay. So so that we can get a little bit of information about who is on the call today. So 4 questions coming straight at you. What relationship do you have with Insights? Are you a client practitioner or one of our partners, licensed practitioner? If you are, thank you very much for everything you do with us, and great to have you here. Maybe few Insights employees, or perhaps you don't have a particular relationship with Insights or none of the above, then that's great to have you with us today, and it will be fantastic to share some time with you. Tell us a little bit about what is your lead colour energy, and actually maybe it's all 4 for some of you, but do you lead with one of the colour energies? We were playing a little bit of that game in the warm-up today. And we also have a question about what have been the main focus areas for you or your organisation during this time. You can tick 1, 2, 3, 4 or 5 of these boxes if these have been focus areas for you. And also to get the chat box going, and I see that many of us are already typing in that chat box, around about 100 or so of us on the call today already. What themes have you seen emerging in your business since lockdown? What are some of the major themes that you're seeing in your own business or in your client organizations that you have been working with? Or you know what, just in general, themes around the globe or themes local to your own habitat. And I can see that agility and well-being and innovation and increased collaboration and communication, lots of stuff coming through, working virtually, staying connected, shifting priorities and resilience. Thank you, Donna. And for Robbie, big move to online communications, training, meetings, etc. And Ruth, mental health, that's for sure. It's been a real challenge, hasn't it? So remote working, empathy, lots of different themes emerging. And I'm sure as Lara is following the chat, she's probably recognizing some of these themes as many of us are. I'm sure she's been experiencing them at Roche as well, and she will share a little bit about what she has been doing. So thank you very much. It looks like we have, gosh, the sunshine yellow energy is here, just nix it. So please do come to express your thoughts and feelings and a good chunk of us that are leading with Earth Green today. It's so fantastic to have you with us. I hope you're having a really lovely day. And a few of us leading with Fire Red and Cool Blue, so we shall get cracking, and we will be sharing some data and detail and helpful hints and tips for you to take back into your own organisation. And if you're leading with all colour energies on any given day, certainly I feel that's what it's been like for the hectic past 5 months that have had us be in lockdown and coming out of it. Brilliant. Thank you very much for participating. We will keep that chat box going, but I think it's time for me to invite Lara to come onto camera so that we can see and share in her story. So Lara will be coming onto camera with me just now. Might need to just click share your camera and then share it again, Lara, just to get you on screen. I think I can just about hear me.
Hold on a second.
I can definitely hear you, just can't quite see you yet. So
hello folks.
There you come.
Thank
Fantastic.
you for having me. I'm really good, thank you. And
you know, Lara,
I'm
how are
really
you doing?
To be here. I felt really privileged to be asked to come and share a little bit about what we're doing. And just firstly, I think big hats off to you guys for facilitating such a wonderful opportunity for people to connect and learn from each other. And I only hope that I can rise to the challenge and inspire some thinking for other people. So I've just been watching this chat box down here, the poll we did about the main focus areas. And it's fascinating watching it change, because initially there was a lot of focus on employee well-being, continuity for customers, and then I saw the adapting learning strategy go right up. But then my thinking was, as I processed it, that obviously by focusing on those two aspects, you're going to, the fallout from that is that you're going to have to adapt the learning strategy anyway. So yeah, really, really interesting watching that, and some great comments too.
Yeah, it shows in these 5 topics alone, I mean, gosh, either in the organisations that the participants are in today or the client organisations that they work with, it's well spread across, actually, isn't it? Organisational change, just nicking it, but along with the modification, adapting of learning strategy yourself. What about in Roche, Lara? I mean, what's been the main focus area for you or your organisation during the past few months?
So, I mean, super question, and it was, all of these things were going through my mind when I was watching the responses to the poll. And I can identify with so much that people are sharing around, supporting people with fatigue, addressing putting some clarity where there's ambiguity, mental health come up, all of those things have absolutely featured for us. So I think we've experienced some absolutely fantastic leadership at Roche, some really dynamic and I want to say agile leadership. I think, that it's the kind of a strapline from our leadership team at Roche at the very beginning of this was, you need to respond to a pandemic as you need to respond to it. And if you can do some work as well, fantastic. And I think, that really engendered a lot of trust in the workforce. And I think loyalty, promoted a lot of loyalty as well. We've got obviously, we're all massively driven by purpose, as I know we all are. But at Roche, our biggest focus is on ensuring that we are able to uphold our commitment to our patients. And the way that we do that is by supporting our customers to enable continuity of care and access to, the life-saving, life-changing medications that we're able to provide. And I know we all operate with this very strong sense of purpose. And I think, that's been absolutely critical for us, maintaining that continuity and contingency for our patients and indeed our customers. But obviously in doing so, what we need to ensure is that we're enabling our people to do so. And that requires us to support them in everything that people have identified today. So It's building resilience. That's what it is, and actually that word has come up specifically. So it's definitely been a real kind of focus on building resilience within the workforce and nurturing them, and that's required, I think, leadership across the organisation to really consider, not just consider what's on the to-do list, but what's on the to-be list. I really love this kind of focus on how am I going to show up today, not what am I going to do today, but how am I going to show up today. And I think the way that manifested itself is that, leaders have had to really think about, what do people need from me today? How do I need to show up? Is it that I need to help to sort of focus and catalyse things? So it's using that kind of combination of the cool blue and the fiery red, or is it very more of a kind of supporting and coaching role that people need? Because as with everybody, there's been an awful lot that we've needed to respond to, and therefore, stuff has had to happen. It had to happen pretty rapidly. So it's the leadership have really had to work at striking a balance and thinking about how they're showing up for people. And on the flip side of that, we've all had to think about how we're showing up for our customers, because we need to allow them the time to respond as they need to respond to, the huge challenge that our healthcare providers have had in doing what they do and what's been absolutely necessary. So I think absolutely that resilience piece has been massively important. I think what's also been a very big focus for us of late, and will continue to be so, is the fact that we are undertaking quite transformation as an organisation, moving towards much more of a customer-centric and responsive model, way of working, focus. And the two things kind of in parallel have obviously been quite challenging for people. And I think that's where focusing on this sort of, I've used the word nurturing before, but continually focusing on supporting people to develop themselves has been so important, because there've obviously been some new skills, some new requirements for new ways of working, a creation of new habits during this period. And that's where I think, we've been able to do some quite, I want to say, magical stuff with resources that we've had to hand. And one such resource is obviously being insight discovery. So does that kind of answer the question?
Yeah, fantastic to get us started, and already there's some activity in the chat. People hungry for specific leadership, operational changes and examples. It makes me think. There's certainly the themes over the last few months that I've been experiencing are around resilience, as you say, and this requirement for leaders to as you say, the red-blue traits of the focus and the process, but also there's been a requirement, I think, around many organisations for leaders to show empathy in a much bigger way, just because, as you mentioned, we're working at home, right? But it's in a global pandemic, so it's not just a working from home normal. It's a really different situation. And just picking up Romeo's comment in the chat there, and by the way, I do encourage everybody to ask questions along the way. But you just maybe say a little bit more, Lara, if that's okay, before we get into talking about insights discovery, and a bit more about what have been some of the specific shifts of leadership behaviours or traits that you've observed, encouraged, instilled, or had your leaders thinking about?
I think it's a great challenge, Romeo, and I've definitely seen some, some positive shifts. And I use the word agile, and you're right to pull me up on that. I think where leaders have been very reliant on the preferences that they would usually utilise, they've had to be a lot more mindful to the needs of the people, and that has required them to, be a bit more versatile in their approach. And I think, this framework probably has really aided with that understanding. So, I'll give you an example. The lead of my team has 9 people reporting into her, and that's quite a big job in itself anyway. And it's operating in this environment has required her to consider how she's using her time most effectively, and considering the individuals who show up really well and appreciate those opportunities for the group to get together, but also providing those kind of one-to-one connections where you've got maybe individuals who have more of an introverted preference to communicate effectively with her. So, making sure that she set up time for all of us, but for each of us, if that makes sense. I think that's been something that I heard a great analogy from our friends at McKinsey the other day, and I don't want to just quote them throughout this webinar, but it resonated for me, and it was about being able to use the microscope as well as the telescope, so understand what's going on at more of a kind of a macro level, but also really knowing what's going on at a micro level. So really, the leaders really flexing their own styles within the organisation. But empathy is a great word, Marcus, and it's only about enabling those communication channels that I really feel that the leadership have connected.
Yeah, sure. Really, really helpful. Thank you. And good example. I mean, I definitely know me myself within my own insights organisation. We're balancing the tactical and strategic every single day. And sometimes I get a little bit lost. Am I working on something tactical or massively strategic here? Because it's been so day to day, week to week, that the tactical has become strategic almost, and the organisational change that organisations are going through intentionally or because they have to is just something that's emerging. I'm just going to load another poll here, Lara, if that's okay. So I'm interested in, you mentioned insights discovery, and maybe you can, as people are responding to the poll about the challenges that they use, that they tackle using insights discovery in their organisations or the organisations they work with. We put a couple of examples up there that you suggested, as well as I've left it open in case people want to add more. But can you maybe talk a little bit about some of the challenges that you tackle with insights discovery, and then we'll come back to the poll if that's okay, as people are loading up the responses.
Absolutely. So just to give you a little bit of a potted history, we introduced discovery at Roche within the UK affiliate, I should add, at the sort of autumn or fall, if you're in the US, in 2019. And a portion of individuals, I think, had the opportunity to participate, to learn from discovery historically. But that's when we introduced it, and we'd only had the opportunity to kind of drip feed it in until the beginning of 2020, which is where we started thinking about, what's our strategy with this? And in some ways, this presented us with a great opportunity to almost accelerate what we were hoping to do anyway. I mentioned that, as I'm sure is similar for many of us on the call today, that our organisation, Roche, are undertaking quite a big transformation in how we work, and there are various things that I can highlight for you that are going to be as a fallout from that transformation. So first of all, there's going to be much less in terms of the kind of historic manager type role. It's much more about personal leadership, and we know that one of the things that we can learn a huge amount about is our own leadership style, how we show up as leaders through engagement with insights, getting to know ourselves, but also understanding what is needed from us as leaders from other people. So I think leadership's definitely something, that personal leadership thing has been a real feature for us. Secondly, we're moving towards much more of a model where we work in self-managed teams, and we gravitate towards pieces of work that we know we can contribute great value to. So two things there. One is, how does the team work in the absence of what we've historically known to be a line manager? And I think that's where the team effectiveness dimensions can be hugely, hugely valuable in helping to enable that focus, you know, the process, the flow, ensure that the team is cohesive and able to prioritise what they're doing, but also to get the dynamic right from the outset. I think the other thing is the need for, you know, the agile working is all about not working necessarily quickly, but working very efficiently. And I think if you can enable people to connect really effectively from the outset, and that requires, you know, self-knowledge, self-awareness, then it will ultimately enable them to optimise their, you know, performance as a collective much more quickly. So there are three, you know, key themes there that I think we really needed to tackle, and that's where I think, you know, the Insight Discovery has provided us with a really useful common language or framework to start from.
Brilliant, thank you very much. And yeah, Julie Johnson was asking some questions about the use of Insights Discovery in the Agile framework. So I think you've begun to talk to that a little bit, and you may say some more shortly. And thank you everyone for the questions that are coming in. I'll be racking those up and coming back to those a little bit later in the session today. The poll has loaded, Lara, so it looks like 59, 125 of us on the call just now, so 59 folks saying tackling team effectiveness, and quite a chunk of people around coaching and leadership, maybe less on customer effectiveness or sales effectiveness in that connecting with our customer space, and then a few others have come in the chat. Are these all areas that you work with?
Yeah.
In Roche in the UK, and can you illustrate like the what and the how of your approach a little bit more in some of the areas? Because there might be some practitioners on here who haven't thought about applying discovery in some of these other areas, you know, that you have. So it'd be great to hear some of your story about how you've actually done things.
Absolutely. So just to say as well, Julie, great question, and I know I've kind of tip of the iceberg addressed some of those points, but I'm really happy to connect with you afterwards, or indeed anybody else who wants to talk things through. It just might be that we have some ideas to exchange. But so what have we done? So when we went into lockdown, obviously that was, I think I mentioned that in the nicest possible way, it provided us with a quite nice opportunity to accelerate the plan that we had with Discovery anyway. And obviously we needed to go virtual, which was an interesting challenge because, you know, our first hurdle was in making sure that we were both able, we had the technology, the right technology to make this as powerful as it could be, but also make sure we were also comfortable with our kind of the whole virtual presence thing, and not getting distracted by changing the backgrounds on our Zoom profiles, etc., which has certainly happened a few times. So we created, based on what we were anticipating, and we were somewhat informed the needs to be falling out of our sort of this transformational period anyway. We generated a bit of a curriculum which we road tested with a number of people across the organisation. So these are predominantly the customer-facing individuals within the organisation, but it hasn't been totally focused on those individuals. We started off, as all of you will have done, by using the introduction to personal effectiveness. So we had, we produced a sort of series of 2-hour programs, the first of which was what we termed Discovering Me, which was an opportunity for us to give a bit of an introduction overview, get people comfortable with the framework, understand, you know, present some of the, you know, the credibility behind it, and give them an opportunity to explore their personal profiles. We did all of this via Zoom, which worked quite well in terms of functionality. You guys have obviously the advantage of Adobe Connect, which is probably even better. I'm not sure if I'm allowed to say anything like that, but Zoom seemed to work really nicely because, again, we really wanted to encourage that interactivity. We maintain session numbers to 8 people per session to kind of maximise the interaction, make sure that we got lots of lots of discussion going on, and there was some opportunity for facilitation. The Discovering Me was the first session. That was 2 hours, following which we invited people to connect with one or other of us after the session, so we could kind of have a bit of a one-to-one coaching breakdown. Obviously, 2 hours is great for a kind of dip your toe in the water, but we didn't want to leave people sort of high and dry with questions to ask, questions not answered afterwards. So I think that opportunity for a one-to-one connect with one of the practitioners was really valuable, to go through things like preference flows and just a little bit of helping to address anything on their mind. We followed that up with 2 other sessions that we're still running, one of which was very much focused around the point I made earlier around team effectiveness, and how moving into this kind of new way of working, we're going to be gravitating towards sort of, let me start again, sorry. We're going to be working in more self-managing teams. So we felt that whilst you may not be working in the team that you're going to be working with in the future, to have some appreciation of the dimensions of effective teamwork would really help us to focus and sort of optimise working as and when these changes take place. The third in the series was another kind of 2-hour session, which was very much focused on adapting and connecting. And I think this has had real value when it's come to enabling and optimising the opportunities that we have to communicate with our customers, because obviously those have been kind of few and far between. So we've wanted to make the very best of those as and when they've the opportunities arisen.
Great, thanks for sharing. Gosh, it's great to hear how you're practically applying the platforms and the sessions over the last 4 or 5 months. Sounds like you've been going for it, Lara. Well done to you. Before I ask another question, and there's a few actually building up that will come, I actually thought it might be good to reach out to the participants today and run a little bit of a poll about what question you guys would like me to answer Lara, like me to ask Lara even next. So Lara, this will maybe give you just a couple of minutes breather to grab a glass of water or something, or whatever. So would you like me to ask Lara about how she aligned the Insights methodology to Roche's objectives and strategic needs? I know there's some energy from that in the chat. Would you like to understand how the team at Roche built the learning journey there? Lara's began to share some of that stuff, or how has COVID affected the learning at Roche? Or, well, I see the votes are coming in. You guys are ahead of me, and it looks like it's changing. I'm going to ask you that top question, if that's okay.
Yeah.
Lara, so how do you align the Insights methodology to Roche's objectives and strategic needs? We actually had a question earlier on from somebody in that space around any changes in strategy and goal settings and thematic goals. So how have you aligned that, particularly over the last few months?
I mean that is a super question. In some ways, I've already come part way to answering it, and that is because as an organisation, we are heavily focused on ultimately working in a way that's going to be a lot closer to our customers, more of a customer-centric way, and that requires us to transform as an organisation. And I don't think there's probably no doubt in anybody's mind here that enabling customer centricity and supporting through periods of change and transformation, this is an absolutely fantastic tool and model to support those things, because the things that fall out of that for individuals are, firstly, knowing ourselves better, understanding where we're going to contribute best value within the organisation, but also, thinking about how we show up best for other people as well, and that's that customer centricity piece. And when I say customer centricity, we're not necessarily just focusing on our external customers. Everybody within the organisation has a customer base, and it's helping people to make that connection and articulate everything that they're doing to what it translates to in terms of customer value. And I'm kind of hoping, whilst maintaining sort of corporate integrity, that helps translate it. But obviously, the customer centricity piece and the transformation are really critical in enabling us to meet the strategic objectives that we've set, and that's to enable.
Good, thank you. Yeah, thank you for expanding on that. And of course, as soon as I asked you the top question, a few people jumped and voted for the second question. So I have to ask you that one now because it's out in front, if that's okay. How have you gone about building the learning journey at Roche?
I think it's a good question because we're awfully good. We've got a lot of sunshine yellow energy, as you probably pick up, and quite a lot of fiery red energy in the team, and we're very good at saying, okay, we know what the strategic needs are, therefore, we know exactly what we need to do, let's just crack on with it and make it happen. And I think sometimes what we overlook is that engagement piece. However, I really feel quite strongly that we did a good job of the engagement piece and really qualified what the needs were in order to sort of create the sessions, and making sure that we're incorporating some of the sort of corporate themes that are coming out. We've got other sort of methodologies that are being used across the business that align to Agile to help us enable this more Agile philosophy. Enable this more Agile philosophy within the organisation. Therefore, it's part of the journey has been to incorporate some of that language and join the dots up for people. Hello?
Good, yep.
Sorry, everybody's frozen.
You still?
I think incorporating some of the other stuff that's going on within the organisation and enabling people to join the dots. That quite simply, it's through engaging with people and really crystallising what those session outlines need to look like in order to really meet them at their level, as well as meeting those kind of strategic aims and goals. And we did some road testing, which was really useful. We had some teams that were really up for the challenge and were very comfortable in giving us some critical feedback, which helped to refine and obviously iterate and evolve.
Good, thank you very much. Thank you for sharing. I'm sure a number of our participants today are taking notice and taking some notes of what your journey has been at Roche, so we can learn together. I'm just going to ask some of the questions that have been coming through, Lara. Now, Deborah Richmond asked a question quite a while, it was probably about 15 or so minutes ago, about what has been your greatest challenge, which was maybe relevant to what you were talking about then, but actually it's a great question by Deborah. Just sitting back from what you've been sharing with us already and just reflecting on what has been your greatest challenge over the past few months, and how have you handled it and managed it?
That is a great question. So if we're talking about home life, it's probably been shouting at my child to get on, my 8-year-old child who's been upstairs on his Xbox and trying to, I'm sure many of you can identify with that, but in terms of, from a corporate perspective, I think there have been many challenges that we've had to overcome through this, and you've already identified quite a lot of that when we asked you what some of the themes were that were coming through for you or have come through for you during this period. But it's this piece around being really mindful about how we're showing up for other people, but also having sufficient knowledge about us or sufficient understanding about how we're feeling. I don't know about anybody else, but this has been really busy for me. I've been so busy, and it's all been really productive and positive stuff, but we've been very quick to react to the situation. And I think that's probably it. Sorry, as you can tell, very sunshine yellow energy today. And I'm thinking while I'm speaking, I think it's possibly because we were so quick to react to things and we were so busy. And I think we almost may have lost sight of what the priorities really needed to be. Because of course, we're in the midst of a global pandemic, and we're programmed. It's fight or flight. We're programmed to react to it. So I think it was a case of after the first few weeks of getting this all up and running, it was a bit of a, hang on a minute, let's just pause, make sure we're absolutely focusing on the right things here. And let's stop reacting and respond and be a bit more considered in our approach. I think, as I said to you earlier on, as a team where there's an awful lot of high sunshine yellow, high fiery red, we're quite responsive, we're quite reactive, and we do stuff. But it was a case of let's just have a think about this for a second, pause, do some reflection, and be really deliberate in our approach here. So I talked myself round to that being my answer, but it absolutely is. Great question.
Yeah, feel it too. Don't know exactly what you're talking about, as I'm sure do many people on this call, but great to hear your story. Raymond van der Berg was talking about recently being at a virtual coaching summit, talking about agile transformation, as you were talking about in your organisation, and he's wondering, I don't know if this is one of the challenges, but how do you deal with multiple suppliers, and how does that fit together? I guess the market is becoming more active as people have kind of trying to figure out this new environment. I'm sure Insights is a trusted partner of yours. But how do you manage that where you have multiple suppliers coming in trying to get some airtime with you? Is that a challenge?
I think it's a super question, and I'm sure most of us have experienced this challenge over time. I think the thing that really helps me in thinking about where I invest my time and who I invest my time with and who I indeed invest with is about saying what value do I get from this partnership. And I think some of that value comes in not only whatever product or service or support I'm procuring, but it actually comes from the interactions that I'm having and the challenges that I have. It's the consultation piece that is equally as valuable to me. And I think that's where I've had really, over the years, where I've been, working with Insights in a partnership capacity, that's something that's really, I think, challenged me to open my mind and to try new things and to maybe not do things. And that partnership has been so valuable. So I guess my response is think about the value that you want to get from the provider. Is it over and above quite simply a product or a service? And in most cases, as consumers ourselves, yes, we do want that additional value. So I'd be very selective in how and who you spend your time with connecting.
Cool, thank you very much. I hope that helped you, Raymond, with the question that you had. I'll maybe join a couple of questions together in the interest of time. So you'd mentioned self-managed teams a while back, and Helen was just asking, could you describe a little bit more about what you mean by self-managed teams? And then Robert Alves was asking, when you were talking about the same thing in team effectiveness sessions, our second step on the journey of the journey you were talking about, do you do open sessions, or do you put real teams together, or to discuss the challenges, or how do you do that? So maybe something around self-managed teams, a little bit more, and then how have you run your team sessions?
Yeah, for sure. So without sort of going too deeply into the whole sort of agile philosophy, but the one thing that is very clear is that we in the future will be working with far less hierarchy, and that will impact the structure will be impacting the structure of our organisation in the future, and probably the structure of lots of other organisations. And therefore, it's when you go through that organisational change, people are left without managers ultimately, as they have previously known them. And of course we have ways of working with managers which mean we are somewhat reliant on them for guidance, for clarity, and for support. Whereas moving towards a structure where we don't have that hierarchy and that's not provided for us, the team, it's incumbent on the teams to provide that for themselves. And I think that's where having some kind of framework to support that is so very important. And I think that's where the team effectiveness stuff has been fantastic. So the way that things will evolve in the future is that we will have individuals from multiple different functions gravitating towards specific pieces of work who perhaps don't know each other and have never worked together. And therefore, it's imperative that they can very quickly forge a very positive working dynamic, enable focus for everybody, focus on the right things, and create a sort of cohesive climate that's going to enable that productivity quite rapidly. So does that, really hope that comes some way to answering the question, but if I haven't answered it in full, please do pick up with me afterwards. I'd be delighted to talk to you. I'm not an expert in Agile, by the way.
That's great, Lara. Oh, thank you, Lara. Do you know what? I'm going to try my best to squeeze in two more questions if I can. One is from Michael Akkad, who's talking about their organisation have been working with insights discovery for 5 years, and so how do you manage to keep bringing it to the forefront and not have everyone just hiding the profiles in the drawer or it was a session? How do you keep the learning alive?
Oh, that's a good question, because I think there's definitely been, I'm sure there are places where people undertake that first kind of introductory session, probably have a fantastic experience, get their profile, and that's it for them. They feel like the box is being ticked. But that's so far removed from the truth, and I feel like they're really missing out on an opportunity to capitalise on the investment that you've made, but that they've made as well. And I guess that's about positioning it correctly in the first instance, and the way that we introduce it as a framework and a common language for ongoing learning, and making sure that people are aware of the different sort of learning needs that actually Discovery is a great language and framework to support with. And that involves connection with leadership and kind of sponsorship as well, so that you have your people that will help you position it towards addressing different needs. And it is capitalising on the investment that you make with it, but positioning it correctly in the first place. And I'm sure if, that potentially not could have been done differently to start with, there are ways and means of addressing that. And I am quite sure that the folk at Insights will be happy to, work with you on doing that. But, if there are any ideas within the community, I'm sure there are lots of ideas within the community to help do that.
Love that, actually. And if you have a thought, please add in the chat box what your thoughts of how you do that, and we'd absolutely love to support. Squeezing in one last one from Brevin, which is about asking, has Insights Discovery changed your approach, culture and purpose as a result of this COVID-19 phase, and how do you keep team focus in the time of disruption? And this will probably be the last question, and we're a little bit up against time, but I wanted to squeeze it in for you, Lara.
Just quickly, I can't see the question. I lost you for a second, Marcus. Can you just repeat it for me?
Sure. The question from Brevin there in the chat, the second question in our box. So, how has Insights Discovery changed your approach, culture and purpose as a result of these last few months? And how do you keep your team and people focused in time of disruption?
I think, we've been going through a change anyway. There is, change is the only certain there is, isn't it? So I think what it's done is it's probably eased the anxiety for some people. It's enabled them a deeper level of self-awareness, self-understanding, and therefore it's probably helped enormously to connect some dots and create a bit more, optimize some of the communication channels, and support people preparing themselves, and this whole thing around resilience is so massively important, because I go back to what I said at the beginning, and it's about, you know, managing, responding to a pandemic as we need to as individuals, and showing up as we need to both in our home life and our work life, and doing some work to the best of our ability when we can, and that requires enormous resilience. And I think for me that is where this has been so critical for the individuals within our organisation and for me.
Oh, Lara, thank you very much for today. Gosh, for putting your face on screen, and the participants can click on the slide here to view Lara's LinkedIn profile and make the connect if you have any follow-up questions. Just fantastic to have somebody come along and share their story and some of the challenges they're facing and some of the ideas. So thank you very much, and thank you for all the participants and the wisdom and questions and thoughts that have come in the chat box along the way. In a couple of minutes you'll be able to go and speak to your son and say you can get back on the Xbox now because the webinar is over. So I'm just going to share a couple of things as we wrap up, and then I'll give you the last word in a minute or two, Lara, if that's okay. For those of you on the call, if you need any support over the coming weeks and months and want to look at the virtual solutions that we have here at Insights around that core discovery, or in the team space or the leadership space, or around resilience, as Lara said a few times, which has really emerged as quite a challenge in many organisations, or in the sales space, how to connect with our customers, we're very happy to be in a conversation with you and support you as practitioners and as clients of Insights to see how we can help your organisations right now. In a couple of weeks, in fact, we're going to take a 2-week break, and then on the 3rd of September, we will be back. And I've been told I'm not allowed to tell you what is the webinar that we'll be running on the 3rd of September. In fact, my own organisation are keeping it as a surprise from me because it's such a big deal. But look out and keep your eye on our virtual events page, because something really interesting is coming along on the 3rd of September. And for those of you that are practitioners, please do check out our calendars and see how we can help you with education to be effective in these times. And our New Connections website, where all our resources for you as practitioners are available, is up and running and is looking very good and very swish and very cool, very trendy. Lara, last word from you. Any final tips or hints, or it might just be a thank you or whatever it might be, but last word to you, and then we shall wrap.
I've just put a note on the chat actually to say sorry, I was kind of doing a lot of thinking on my feet there, so you could see my true to form sunshine yellow coming through. But seriously, if there's one or two things that people have taken away to think, yes, that's worth a thought, that's worth an idea, then I'm delighted, and it's well worth the investment of time. I'd also be delighted to connect with anybody that can help me. And yeah, please, you've got my LinkedIn details, so anybody that does want to do so, I'd love to talk to you. And thank you so much for facilitating this opportunity, Marcus, and all of the team there. Kerry, thank you hugely.
You're welcome, Lara. It's been a great session today. We've overrun by 1 or 2 minutes, but with Sunshine Yellow Energy, we're allowed to do stuff like that. Thank you for those that are hanging in there and stuck with us. We shall see you again in a few weeks. I hope you have a fantastic rest of day wherever you are in the world. Please do be well and do keep safe, and we will be in touch.